Hello, welcome. I am the Wizard of Pause. I was given that title years ago because of my interaction with over 1,450 subject matter experts across all branches of retail. What I'm going to show you here is the one component of a modern architectural design, the retail business process modeling component. So where does the business process modeling component fit? Well, let's start with the world. And we decide we want to run a business and we want to establish some goals for that business. And so we have an overall business model. From that business model, we identify various business strategies and create a value stream to focus our business on that business model. We then put together a business architecture model, which takes the value streams and creates capability maps to manage each of those to help us focus on that business goal. We take those capabilities and we model them in the business process model, which is what this video is about. From there, we take it on down into the enterprise architecture, which is fundamentally the data, the information itself. So we go back to the top, and what's the definition of a business model? And here it describes the rationale of how an organization creates, delivers, and captures value in economic, social, cultural, or other context. Please, Wikipedia, folks. It's a process of business model construction that is a part of the business strategy. In retail, we created this business model back in around 2002 under the Association for Retail Technology Standards umbrella. And this model is primarily my work. And I have extended it and upgraded it over the last 20 years as new things came into being. Fascinating part about this is that not a lot of new things have been added at this level over the last 20 years. So now we take that model and apply a business architecture to it. So we're going to start focusing it in on what we want to do. And an architecture is the blueprint of the enterprise that provides a common understanding of the organization and is used to align strategic objectives and tactical demands. This is where you start taking the strategies out and identify value streams to execute those strategies and build it on down into capability maps. This is a generic picture showing what a business architecture looks like. As we said, you start with the strategy components, which are tied to the previous work. You identify various items that are of value in the architecture. You create value streams or flows associated with those. And from those flows, you need information, people, and processes to make that happen. And that's where the capability maps come in. And once you've got the capability maps, you can then reach down into the behavioral information and the information to execute that. And so we now have a complete link from the top to the bottom. So as I said, business process modeling is one of the three things that tie into the capabilities, that being the process, the people, and the information. For here, the business process model is the activity of representing processes of an enterprise so that the current process may be analyzed or improved. So I started with the business process model created by ARTS back in around 2015. That was when it was last published. And I've expanded on it and quite dramatically expanded on it. But these are the level 0 sets of processes, and these are identical to the ones that they came up with. And then we're going to drill down into the managed sales process to show you a little more lower level information. As I said, I've expanded dramatically on the model that is in the OMG website today. As you can see, I've identified quite a number of different business processes that are at the level 1 level. This isn't even getting down into information and people and execution. This is just the various processes people do. And in my model, I've also added other areas that cross-connect this so that it is actually a three-dimensional model overall. And we're going to drill down into the sales process transactions. So now we're going to drill down into the level 1 sales process, and all of a sudden we start seeing a lot more of real process information appear. We're starting to look at the flows, and this is the flow of a sales process with various swim lanes. The top here being the overall flow of this one with the processes beneath it that have to execute to create that information. These are where the capability maps start coming into play and tying things together. Now I've taken this even farther, and as you can identify, there are green things here. Those are interfaces to other things that are already standardized. So you don't need to know the inner workings of them. You simply have to know how to talk to them. This is where the API models start coming into play big time. And of course, one of the most important interfaces is something called pause log. It's the output of the point of sale, and that message itself is in effect the lifeblood of retail as it communicates information to all over retail applications. So as we move on down and we start looking at the details, for example, around pause log, we start getting into information models. And a business information model is the representation of the concepts and the relationships, constraints, rules, and operations to specify the data semantics for a chosen business domain. Well, doggies. I hope you understand that one. Basically, it's the data and connections that occur to make sure that whatever it is you're trying to do gets properly executed. In the case of retail technology and retail in general, there is an extensive support of the information models necessary to run retail. As you can see through this, these were generated by the Association for Retail Technology Standards starting in 1994 and continued all the way up until today. Today, they're now under the Object Management Group umbrella. But you can see there's sets of blueprints that help you understand. These are like complex requirements docs, an enormous number of design docs, of which I have personally extended it dramatically. Several technical reports for how to interface with other systems like payment systems. Sets of best practices, and those are required because in order for all of these things to be consistent, they have to be best practiced. Interface standards, all of these standards cover almost 80 to 90% of the interfaces in retail. That helps you with your integration between applications. You may not even know who the guy on the other side is. And if you're in the microservices world, you definitely don't know. This is key to making that work. Device interface, these are your printers, scanners, and all of that, and there's a whole lot of those. This is one of the most commonly adopted standards. We have the data models. The data model is actually where this whole thing began way back in 1994. And I've added a bunch of requests for proposals to help people purchase this information very quickly. These are not meant to be turnkey RFPs, but they're meant to be something you use as a model to drill down to create the RFP that is tailored specifically to your needs. So now let's look at the information that is necessary to make this work. Here's one on pause log. Pause log is, as I said, the most important interface definition for communicating messages across all of retail. This is a sample of the information areas that are available to describe how to use that. There are several different kinds of transactions under pause log, and there's another video that talks about the pause log messages themselves. We have process views, we've got a block diagram view of the thing, and we get down into the actual details. And if you look at pause log at the detail level, there's several thousand, somewhere around 5,000 or 6,000 attributes in this model. How it fits into the flows of things. You want to do omni-channel, this shows you how to make that happen. And one of the greatest things that occurred was the creation of an omni-channel system in 2011. It was actually announced at the NRF show, and it all followed the information built into pause log. It was the first real omni-channel system in existence. And then there are other ones, all kinds of lower level details. As a result of all the knowledge that I've received from all of those 1,450 individuals, I created this interactive virtual unified retail model. There's three basic components to this thing. First, there's a business store model, which shows all of the applications that are used in retail and the interactions between them. Secondly, there's a business process model. This extends the business process model from the Association of Retail Technology Standards, now under the omg.org/retail umbrella. And finally, I've created a business lifecycle model. Here I start with a business strategy, tie it to architecture, and on around the circle. You'll hear more about each of these as we work through this thing. The unique aspect of this is I've cross-connected all three models. So if you're in the business process model, you can see what applications are there, where in the life cycle it fits. In control theory, closed-loop architectures are inherently stable. That is, they adjust on the fly to changes in the system. This keeps the system in balance and quickly reacts to whatever happens. This is the heart of the interactive virtual unified retail model I've created. This model is based on the knowledge I've gathered from over 1,450 subject matter experts over 20 years. A key component of this model is the connection between the business strategy down to the people, processes, and information, with feedback being driven by the business intelligence. One important component is the value streams identified in the business architecture area. These value streams help focus the business on what it takes to implement the strategy. Now, in the strategy area, there are 11 business strategy groupings. In the business architecture area, there are two components. One is the value stream, and there's 26 value stream groupings. And underneath those, there are capabilities to support the various value streams, and there are over 35 capability map groupings in this. When you move around to the business process area, this is one business process that covers the whole retail business. You move on around to the business organization, and this is basically the org chart that ties the people who need to execute the processes to support the value stream that manages the business strategy. And we move on around to the enterprise architecture, and this is where the information is. In this area, there's over 9 blueprints, or basically a statement of work for building those various pieces. There are 14 groups of engineering drawings, like life cycle drawings, timing diagrams, etc. There are 29 interface definitions for connecting all of this stuff up, and these are critical when you move on into the microservices architecture we'll talk about in a second. On top of that, there are over 40 physical devices that can be directly connected to this. Using this model, you'll be able to swap one device for another, one printer from one manufacturer with a printer from another manufacturer without an enormous amount of effort. In here, there's one huge data model with over 8,000 attributes. I would say roughly 80 to 90% of the operational side of the business is covered in this data model. Then to tie it back into the business intelligence area we'll talk about in a second, there was one data warehouse with 2 data marts, and those are all connected to the various KPIs in the business intelligence area. Then there are 20 RFPs to help purchase various applications. So we move around to the business intelligence area, and in there we have 20 KPI groupings that finally link back to the strategy to make sure that we are executing the proper value stream and monitoring it correctly. Those who fail to study history are bound to repeat it. The modern API revolution is taking us back to the pre-1994 world where everybody's going to create an API. They think they have the absolute best one, and what will happen is somebody's going to have to write a translation from their API to somebody else's API, and we're back to the mess that started the creation of Arch. It's much better to leverage the existing material that is out there than it is to go create your own new set, thinking that you know better. So thank you for listening to this. My name's Richard Halter. I have a YouTube channel out there where this was posted. I've got a blog as well at globalretailtechnologyadvisors.com. I have a couple of courses. One is a self-paced course talking about the microservices architecture and all of the components that you need to make it work. There's also a course on POSLog, which is the lifeblood of retail. Point of sale information is used in virtually every application there is in retail. So thank you for listening. Oh, by the way, I've written a book as well called Arts for Retail, which gives you a good insight into how all of this stuff fits together.